How long will it get?
Close to
Do what?
Oops. Let's see.
No, no, it's fine. I'm just gonna-
I think it's about, well,
Should I know? So, yeah, if you don't mind, go ahead and start. Are we rolling? Okay. All right, welcome everyone. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the BET for Tuesday, April 8th. We'll call it to order. Roll call. Let's go ahead and do a roll call since this is kind of a new structure here.
Brandy Martins for District 2.
Carrie Hudson for County Clerk.
Joe Wild, District 1.
Christy Treadway Miller for the Treasurer.
Rick Buchanan, Court Clerk. Mike Morrison for County Assessor. Brady Holmes for Sheriff.
All right, thank you. Notice that this meeting was properly posted on April the 7th, 2025. Item number 1, discussion possible action regarding the minutes of March the 11th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. The minutes of March the 11th are approved. Item number 2, discussion and possible action regarding any items currently on the BET watch list. I believe we have one item that somebody requested to discuss. Eric Brandt is here from planning. He wanted to discuss his item that's on there for the master plan. Eric, if you want to go ahead and take a minute and let everybody know why you're here.
So the master plan is the county master plan as far as land development over typically 30 years in the future. And so we've gone through the process of doing public outreach, a public survey. We compile those results. I've sent that information to each commissioner to review. And so we're in the process of reviewing the initial contract or what the consultant, which is CH Guernsey, is going to do for us about this project. The contract, at least at this point in time, it looks like it's in the neighborhood of $215,000 to do this particular project. And so we're just asking for $50,000 on the block. We're trying to enter into the contract this current fiscal year so we can move forward with that creation of that project. So we just have more of those funds to be moved forward.
Eric, you said you to the commissioners, you got feedback. I mean, have they voted on it?
So what I gave the commissioners at this point is the survey that we sent out. So part of the issue when we started this process of trying to update the county master plan was just overall cost. So initially we were in the neighborhood of $275,000 that was going to cost us. We didn't have enough money at the time to even think about moving forward. So one of the things that we decided to do was to do the public outreach component. In this case, it was a survey that we sent out to 1,000 property owners in an unincorporated area of the county. And we got back approximately 245 of those. And so we compiled a report together with all of those results and provided that report to them to let them know at least the foundation of the plan of where we're starting. So that's the only thing that the commissioners have got from us at this point in time.
Eric, you need the money and the contract so Guernsey can take those survey results and look to incorporate them into the plan update that would then be presented to Planning Commission first and then to the BOCC. Is that
right? So what would happen from this point would be very kind of the most recent task that we take on that's kind of similar to this is when we did our zoning and subdivision regulation. So the survey results would basically be a good foundation for us to get started. We would have additional public meetings before we even wrote anything in regards to the master plan to get more input. So we would have a public meeting in each district. And then we can continue to have meetings throughout the process with the planning commission where the public can also be involved there. This process would probably take us a year, maybe a year and a half to get the plan created and to get it approved. So there'd be constant input from the public planning commission. Once the plan itself is created and we have a rough draft, we would then have other public outreach meetings in each district, get more input before the plan itself is certified.
The contract price, the pricing that you have for the contract would cover the entirety of that process. You wouldn't be back for more.
Correct.
So, excuse me, Joe, are you through?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep, Eric, what's the 50 grand cover?
Basically, it helps us get to cover the total cost. We've been saving money over the last 2 years from the fees that we take in from building permits, zoning applications, planning applications, etc. So we've been saving up money over the last couple of years to try to do this project. Once we started having consultants come in and give us their presentation as far as what they could offer, the services that they would give us to complete this project, that's when we started having conversations as far as the cost. None of the costs that we received from the various consultants we could afford at the time. So that was when we stepped back and we decided to do the survey ourselves. Big component. Just doing the survey ourselves saved us in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $75,000.
Gotcha.
So that savings in combination with these funds would get us to where we could move forward with this contract.
So, Eric, remind me, you were north of 200,000 to begin with, and then decided to do a key component in-house to save, like you said, $60,000-ish. The contract with Guernsey, when that is paid in full, the contract that you're talking about doing now, that will complete the overall cost of updating the master plan, is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so what are you anticipating that contract with Guernsey being, for what amount?
215.
Okay, so to meet the 215, you've saved up money and you need an additional 50,000 to go with what you've saved to be able to encumber the full amount.
Correct.
And
And it would also provide us a little bit of buffer on our side. As you know, we're self-funded, so if as we move in the next fiscal year,
quasi self-funded.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Right,
used to
right.
be completely, but exactly.
but it would provide us some buffer moving forward to where if we didn't have any of these funds, we would basically be spending every time that we had.
And why is this something that we need to tackle right now in this fiscal year instead of looking at next fiscal
This is something that we've been trying to move forward with over the last year or two. And like I said, what's the latest is one, obviously cost. But two, we also knew we had an opportunity to save some money in regards to doing the survey. So we're just trying to move forward. This is something that we've been talking about for 3 or 4 years now at least. So we're just trying to move forward. So I get your point to where if we move forward toward the beginning of next fiscal year,
year?
I mean, that wouldn't be the worst thing. No.
So how much money have you guys saved up?
Approximately $220,000,
Over how long of a period?
3 years.
About 70K a year on average. So do you think if we push this until the beginning of next fiscal year, you may have been able to squirrel away some more to help offset that cost?
Potentially. I mean, I'm sure everybody watches the news and everybody's kind of in a panic as far as the economy. So, you know, I don't know. A few months from now, we may have a lot less building permits and a lot less applications to pull money from to move forward. So that's our department is all. it's always economically driven. So it just depends on the economy as a whole.
When was your last master plan?
It was approved in 2008.
I guess what I'm wondering is if we waited a little bit, whether it's getting into next fiscal year or whether it's towards the end of this fiscal year, because we don't have a whole lot left in reserve. I guess this could be considered a one-time and come out of the one-time monies. What I was thinking was, if you've already got everything lined up, you're just waiting for the extra money to be able to enter into the contract. If we waited to make a decision on this until we were closer to the end of the fiscal year to see if there were any other emergencies that we needed the money for, and then if there's not, then we could look at that. That would be my favorite approach if we were talking about the ongoing money. The one-time funds is a little bit different if we were approaching it from that.
The only other thing as far as our side in regards to doing this now is if you wait till the end of this fiscal year, let's say we enter this contract around the summertime. Typically, we try to work with when school's in session. If we work during the summertime, a lot of people are out on vacation, various other things to where our public meetings don't line up with that. So we don't get as much participation.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're really getting back into August, September, October time frame of this year if we were to wait.
That makes sense.
Is this something that if we have any lapse funds coming, that could be applied?
What do you mean?
As we move forward and close out the year?
Well, we won't have lapse funds
Until after June
September.
30th.
September, so
So,
Eric, if we recommend this, where would you need the 50,000 to be? With general government, or is it in your general fund? Planning department.
It would be in our general, it's in the maintenance.
Well, it has to stay in the general fund, so when you go to
So
encumber
it
the
may be-
contract, you'll be out of two funds. I just didn't know if it was general government or the planning. General fund. My comments are just that I think it's fine to go ahead and move forward, given the money we have. I think one-time funds is appropriate. We're over 7 million there, so and let's just get this done.
been waiting a while.
We can beat up on Eric when he asks for general fund dollars next year.
Yeah.
We're not done with him.
Anything from any of the three districts, since this is a department of the DOCC?
I haven't sat here in a while. Remind me the origin of the one-time funds and what the contemplated use of those was, at least initially.
It came out of September supplement. There was a 14+ million and I want to say 2+ million roughly. And the 14 was the money that came from the sheriff. It was ARPA for their project that they didn't use, and then ARPA interest. And with the September supplement, it was voted to put it into reserve.
Right, so
There was some
I
extra
remember the
funding.
budget discussion, but also seem to recall that part of the thought process and we hear a lot of talk about we need to find money for jail. At least initially, I thought some of the conversation was that those one-time funds would be put in to one of those funds to go for that purpose. Am I remembering that correctly? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think we need to move forward with the master plan, but I think we ought to take it out of the ongoing funding. Eric's done a really good job of saving money over the years for this purpose. Is now to the point that he needs a little to get over the finish line to get started. And as you heard, we're coming up on 20 years on this process. So I agree with Christie moving forward. I think it's a matter of how do we move forward, and the one-time funds, I'm a little hesitant at using those at this point. I mean, that's my initial thought. And I remember going to those public meetings and this process, and so, and it took a long time previous to that, right? The update in 2008, it had been a considerable length of time prior, right?
Right, so
Yeah.
the master plan that we're currently under now is the first master plan that the county's had since the sixties.
Yep.
And so to create that master plan that's currently in place now is a 3-year process.
So we're ahead of schedule.
Well, the goal, I mean, at least the planning commission's goal over the year was to update the master plan every 5 to 10 years. So if you go off the 2008, obviously.
Yeah, I was going for that.
Right.
What be the will?
Let me ask one more question. Since we're on the BET watch list as a whole, what items on here could we potentially have to fund before the end of the fiscal year? I know some that I've marked are the CARES audit, the special election. I think those were the only other two. Juvenile, obviously, they're later on the agenda. 8, so that's 800,000. 825,000 that I could see potentially we would need to do before the end of the fiscal year. We'd probably hear from election board pretty quick.
Yeah, Eric, we're gonna have some special BET meetings here throughout April. Is this something that we need a recommendation today? Or is this something that we could, because we're discussing this based upon it being on the watch list right now, we could go ahead and have a specific agenda item on a special meeting that we have coming up, and it would maybe give us a little bit of time to figure out if we are going to have, if it's looking like we're going to have a special election and some of these other items. It sounds like there might be a will to recommend budget board do a transfer from reserve. It's just a matter of where, and I could be speaking wrong. I'm just talking about the input that I've heard so far. But there may be some consternation over whether it's the one time or the ongoing. And I think knowing the items that are on here that there's a high likelihood that we may have to fund, or maybe there's a high likelihood we won't have to fund, could affect the recommendation from which bucket it comes out.
No, that would be fine. We're still looking at detailing the contract as far as what they're gonna help us with. So, sure, we do have some.
Okay. So is everybody comfortable with that? We'll have Eric submit an agenda item to Cassie, discussion possible action regarding recommendation of the transfer of $50,000 from general fund reserve to planning commission for the master plan. Send that to Cassie, and then Cassie can make sure it's on our next agenda that we have. Would that work for you, Cassie? Okay, if that's okay with everybody, let's take that approach, and then we should have a little bit more information.
One more question. Christie mentioned the 500,000 in the CARES audit. Chantel, where are we at on that? I think I recall some of those questioned costs. We had the opportunity to provide documentation on costs that weren't submitted to whittle down what may be a number that was looking at being disallowed. So are we still in the 500,000 range? Where are we at?
Yes, absolutely.
absolutely still ongoing. That is still the number being looked at, and that has not changed since my last. We have not received a final report from U.S. Treasury.
When does that expect?
The audit with U.S. Treasury is expected to begin any day, and it has not. So typically speaking, some of these audits are around 60 days. And so that would be my anticipation that as soon as it starts, it would be that time frame where we would get a better number.
So we're probably looking at next fiscal year.
I'm of the same opinion. We just have not received any contact from them since my last update to the board.
I guess if we don't have it yet, we've always talked about this, what's the deadline to pay it? You know,
Right.
you have 30 days, 60 days.
If it takes 60 days for the audit and they haven't started yet, we're
We know,
into
we
June.
will still
And
have
then
enough.
even if it is, I think it's, Joe, do you remember what that was?
Wasn't it 120
I think
days?
it was 120 days. Yeah. I think that as well. So,
To pay
so-
the liability.
To pay back the.
yeah, so
And that's after the final report.
exactly, yeah. So we're into,
So that's when we kind of answered.
any other items on the watch list that anybody wants to have a conversation about right now?
You can reduce mine by a little. I did pay for a water heater yesterday, so you can reduce mine by 12,000.
Delete
The water heater line item.
So move it down to 10?
Yeah.
Okay. Without objection, we will do that. All right. Okay, we can always come back if we need to, towards the end of the agenda to discuss the watch list if that becomes necessary. Item 3, discussion possible action regarding an update on employee benefits. Mr. Wilkerson?
Good afternoon. This report details claims paid through last week's BOCC meeting versus the same period last year. Medical's up less than 1%, 65,000, doing well. Prescriptions are up about 3.5%, 333,000 overall. We're up 398,000, which is, standard on plans. And we did budget for increases anyway, so it's well below what we budgeted for at this point. We have seen over the last 3 weeks our medical claims, some big ones come through, so we're watching that closely. We're about where the rubber meets the road, getting towards the end of the fiscal year, so watching that really closely over the next several weeks. Reimbursements, we've had less reimbursements than we did last fiscal year. One thing to remember when we're looking at reimbursements, this is just a snapshot of what we got in the door last year versus this year. It's not what was budgeted, because we budgeted a little less than what these show. So overall, the benefit plan's doing well. We're within budget. Looking good. Just watching it closely because this could shift at any time easily. We could get $1 million check register next week. So we have to just watch it closely.
The prescription rebates, I see we're up a little. Is that by any fault of our county pharmacy, or we're not really
Not at all.
seeing that yet?
Not at all. It's just a timing issue, really. So we should receive another prescription rebate in
We've
May.
actually received more rebates this year than we did
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
So it's
that-
actually better.
Yeah, it's been a little better. We should receive our last rebate for this fiscal year in May and still be able to get it on the books for this fiscal year. But it's going to take a little time for the county pharmacy
right.
because really we're spending money out the door and then to buy the drugs. And then those claims are being filed on our prescription plans. So we're paying for those costs of those prescriptions too. And we have to wait for the next month to get a reimbursement check. And then maybe the next month for it to be deposited and
Right.
credited the way we do
course.
business. So there's a big lag time, but eventually it'll catch up.
And the more folks we have billing there instead of elsewhere, we're going to start seeing even more reduced costs, correct? Not just because of the click fees, but also because of our buying power.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, in August. So we needed 6 months of data to get cheaper drug costs, especially for the GLP-1s. That's a main concern. If you remember, our plan went up about $3.5 million just on those GLP-1s. Medicare just announced they're doing away with coverage of them because they just can't afford it. But we kind of have absorbed $3.5 million over the last several years on our prescription plan because we cover GLP-1s. But kind of speaking to that, in August, we should be able to qualify for cheaper GLP-1 prescriptions. So it should help us with cost. Now, just to overview the pharmacy, how we're doing, we started in February. We ran 920 scripts through, which is a good amount for the first month, $130,000 worth of volume. Fast forward to March, we did a 67% increase. Instead of 920 scripts, we ran 1,426 scripts through, big increase. And instead of 130,000 in February, we did $273,000 worth of volume in March. So it's just steadily increasing. More people are using it. And a lot of people get drugs filled on a 90-day. So when that timing comes up, the prescriptions come up, then we'll see them kind of transfer over. But a lot of interest in it.
And just to be clear, I mean, I know everybody on this table is clear on this, but if there's anybody watching, it's not that we've increased the number of prescriptions that the plan is paying for over those periods. It's a shift of those that we were paying somebody else that are actually being handled in-house.
Yeah, correct. It's a shift from the retail pharmacy. So instead of retail pharmacy capturing our profit on a prescription plan, we're internally kind of capturing that now. And that's kind of the shift we made. Just kind of startling statistic to throw out there. Last 2 months, county pharmacy combined spent about $404,000 on drugs, prescription drugs. 64% of that was GLP-1s. So $273,000. So that's a big chunk. And then once we get that better pricing in August, we start that process, we should see the profit margin start going up drastically with county pharmacy.
What kind of pricing break are you expecting percentage-wise?
Well, I can say I think dollar-wise on this because that's what I'm thinking. Right now we make $100-something per GLP-1, which is pretty low. With the new contract, we'll be able to apply for in August, probably around $400 per script. So huge increase. But they don't want to mess with any retailers unless they have so much volume. So they require 6 months of volume, 6 months of pay proof to us that you spend this much, and then you can come into our governmental plan and get that reduced pricing. Overall, they're doing really well. I mean, 1,426 scripts is a lot from the run through last month.
How's the employer premium portion working? Did that working well? The change there?
Yeah. So as it looks now, looks like we're gonna have enough money, but that's just snapshot as of now. We have to still 2 more months claims to come in, but it's trending in the right direction. And then just to remind everybody, I always like to throw this out here because we're kind of outside the norm. We've had big years, small years. We went way down, but the typical health plan goes up 7% on medical, 12% on prescriptions every year. That's what they kind of budget for. So just as a reminder.
All right. Anybody have anything? All right.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. The document that he was discussing was not actually attached to the agenda. So without objection, the chair will request the clerk's office to make it a part of the record. All right. Is there a motion to receive John's report?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to receive the report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
I bet. I mean, you could. We got to watch you.
Keep me honest. All right, item number 4, discussion possible action regarding, let's go ahead and skip 4 because we have an agenda item later discussing item 14, some special meetings. So let's discuss item 4 when we get down there, if that's okay.
I just wanted to make sure 14 says it listed specific dates that we had enough flexibility if something had changed.
I wanted to discuss that as well when we get there. So
Sounds good.
that's why I wanted to just kind of move. We'll address forward when we get there. Item 5, discussion possible action regarding policies, procedures, processes related to 25-26 budget reviews and recommendations. It's kind of a catch-all agenda item. Anybody have anything right now for this?
I do. I have a question. I guess it's just a question for the clerk's office. When we'll have the statement of revenues. I'd like our group to review it and obviously vote on it before budget board. So,
I think we talked about that last year. Yeah.
well, it always used to be that way.
Right.
It was always in April. And then that way we had our revenues when we start looking at the budget instead of getting them late. I mean, when it's later.
Blake provided me with remind me, like, what's called again, the reporting Friday.
Just the estimate.
Yeah, the estimate. So he get that done Friday afternoon, and I started working on it. So hopefully by the end of this week, I'll have it for y'all.
Is it something we can have on the next time we meet?
Yeah, what's next week?
I'm
It
not
won't
sure
be
yet.
this week. It'll be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Cassie, can you make sure that's attached? Our next meeting. Thank you. Anybody else have anything on 5? If not, we'll move on to item 6. Oh, yes.
I just wanted to also, kind of piggyback off of the same comment, the books that we're preparing for all of the estimated needs to be included. Those are being prepared as we speak, and so I was just going to mention that those could be provided to the departments. They will also be available for the next meeting to be received, so that you guys can have the department presentations. But we could include the document that the finance office will prepare as well.
The books. So you guys are going to provide hard copies
Yes, sir.
this year?
They're very nice looking.
Yes, sir. In a binder.
Thank
It's
you.
very nice binder.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I remember when we used to do that a long time ago.
Yours truly,
Yeah.
which is the wrong thing to say, but Christy suggested it.
Yeah.
And so we've been working very hard to put that together and wanting to capture as many department final documents that we can. So we're just preparing those now and recognize that this piece of information that you just discussed, the statement of revenues, would be hopefully part of that whole package for you guys.
Oh,
Awesome.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 6, discuss study partnering with the Criminal Justice Authority and make possible recommendations to Budget Board regarding CJA's efforts to implement and assume full operational responsibility for providing medical services to detainees. Do you have anything on this item?
I don't.
Moving on. Item 7, discussion possible action regarding funding for countywide asset management workflow management solution, amount not to exceed $80,000. Paul?
As discussed last time, we were waiting for everybody to review it and make their decisions. Otherwise, at least for sure, our district and emergency management is ready to move forward, even if we split the costs. So it's just whether the county wants to implement it as a whole.
And if memory serves correct, this $80,000 will be for the rest of this fiscal year expense plus implementation. And then moving forward, I think that number was going to be
Just
south
drops
of,
down to
like 30,
32.
I was thinking 36, somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 moving forward.
Yes.
And I will also say that I did talk with the company, and it was brought up last time that we wanted to prorate possibly for this year, and that's something they're willing to do. So, or if we enter an agreement with them, we can postpone it until July, and they'd be willing to also do the implementation part where we could hit the ground running, pay the money up, that we have on July 1 when we hit the new year. That's another roundabout way of doing it as well, because that was also floated in the meeting last time. So. There's been, I have talked about prorating, and I've talked as well as the length about, okay, if we decide whenever we decide our go live date is when we would bid. So.
the numbers that we're talking about right now,
Would those stay?
yeah, if memory serves, they were
There were only for
undergoing
two-
a price change.
There's only for 2 departments currently. So that's what it's set up for right now. And if we have other departments that want to come in that are easier, those can be onboarded by Gabe and I, and that way it saves the county $9,000. I really think that the assessor's office stuff, what they want to do is that relatively on the easier side of things once we understand the program, and we'll be able to do that. But for like the commissioner's projects, those are a little bit more intuitive because you have to take all the data from the other product that we're currently using, Munis, and input some of that stuff in there. Novotics would do that for us. That's that 9,000. If we did it with just the districts, I would recommend doing all 3 districts right then and there. If they want in, if they don't want in, we can revisit this and see if it's something that we can do later. But if they know for a fact that you're going to use it as of day one, you guys don't want to see what District 1's doing, what District 3's doing. You guys want to be siloed. So it would be another $9,000 most likely per office. So right now we have the silos currently set up as emergency management and District 3 because those were the ones when we first went to talk to Novotics that wanted in on this. And if we change the scope, I've asked it's around $9,000 per silo.
Okay, so the 80,000 is not countywide.
It's countywide. You
The
understand.
implementation is not.
The implementation aspect of it, like getting people into it. So like if you want your office, the sheriff's office to come into it, and you want an outrageous, like, you know, a request that Gabe and I don't feel like we could do, that's where we would say, I think it's better for Novotics to implement this. But I'm really certain with you guys, with the assessor's office, with other people, the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant on the district side is just because of all the backlog of data that they want involved in this. And I don't want it to slow down the process of getting other people involved. But the 80,000 is for unlimited licenses within Oklahoma, is what it is. That's to implement the 2 offices. And I think it's actually like 77,000, I think, or something along those. That's to get 2 offices. We went as high up as like, I think 90 at one point, and that was to have, I think, all 3 offices, or, you know, 3 to 4 offices at one point. So I don't, but the thing about it is once we're implemented, it does drop. No matter what, it drops down to that 31. It is 31. I think it's 31.5.
Are you wanting to move forward now or wait fiscal year starts? If the county wants to implement as a whole, multiple departments who are willing to do this, I think we're fine with the implementation starting at the beginning of the fiscal year, the new fiscal year. We're not having everybody interested and it's still just the 2 departments, then we're ready to wait.
Because I'm speaking from our office, from my conversations with you, is it would be a startup new for us, so the implementation for our side is like minimal
Very
compared
minimal
to trying
because
to draw all your historical data in from the other
Exactly.
groups. So
exactly. And we've talked about it in the past too, that, you know, there's another side of this component that I think would be beneficial, and I know that the assessor's office has spoken that they would like that too. So it's something to talk about as well if we would like to. But it's an extra, it's a little bit extra, but what it does is it opens a county portal, or if we want to, whatever we want to add to that portal, we can add it to it for constituents to go log in and see. If you want to pay your bill there, you can pay your tax bill there. If you want to see if you have a lien against your house, you can look at things and we can put those liens onto there. If you want to see if say you guys are doing a commissioner's project, instead of sending out mailers, in this instance, if they opted into a countywide mobile app, they would then get a push notification saying, hey, we will be on your area at this time. Please be on the lookout for this road work going, this work being done. And so
I've spoken since the last meeting. I'd expressed that we might have some interest in,
Yes, sir.
in doing that this one. Did you reach out
I reached out to Ryan.
to Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, but were you able to get with Tex and
Tex was involved. I didn't reach out to Tex. I reached out to Ryan.
Okay.
Requests that I received, just to see what it was or if anybody could talk to anybody. And it was basically on the side of, it was a little bit hectic at that point. So so we just kind of came to the conclusion we talked about it this week or here again.
Okay.
I know Tex has seen the product multiple times, and he has said not only does he want it as just a personal thing, he thinks it kind of needs it. So I know he saw it at the UC this last year, and he that's the only thing he could talk about.
Okay, let me touch base with them again. But I think also last time we talked about this, when I expressed our possible interest, it was something that I believe we could pay out of highway cash. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly?
We talked about highway cash in the past, but if we wanted to make it if you're wanting to do highway cash versus general revenue, it's up to you guys if you're willing to let the rest of the county in on that.
Well, but if you say you have 8 interested users and you prorate it, you issue 8.
We could separate it in some way, probably where it's multiple POs going to if you'd like to do it that way. But that's
because if I'm remembering this right, the most of the benefit to us would be on the highway side.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So other districts could do that as well.
If that's what you guys come to agreements on, then yes. If it's up to you guys completely. I'm not
So
gonna weigh in one side or
just
another.
a little bit longer. Let us reach out to the highway folks and. I mean, if we have multiple departments, as I said, then I'm fine waiting, and we can do it out of general fund. We can split it 8, 9, 10 ways out of our individual department funds is fine with me.
I know we were thinking the workload component for our TRCs would be advantageous, but we were just kind of letting the highway forge the way and get on and use it first.
So maybe between now and our next meeting, everybody let's have a conversation with our teams and figure out if you're going to want to do it. And if you are, get with Tim, and Tim should be able to let you know whether he and Gabe can implement or whether we're going to need Novotics to implement. And what we could always do is do the funding in 2 different mechanisms. The overarching cost, we could look at a general fund, but then if you need additional implementation, to Joe's point, District 1, if they have the highway cash to pay the $9,000 for their implementation, then each could find out from you, is this something that you can do, or are we going to have them do it? If we have to have them do it, how much is it? It's $9,000. Okay, perfect. We can do that.
Yes.
And then when we come back, everybody can tell us what they want. If they're going to pay their portion of the $9,000, and then we can make a recommendation to budget board for the amounts that don't include the implementation part. It would just be the software as a service or whatever they're called.
Yeah, software as a service, exactly. Yeah. And then I will let you know that you don't need an iPad to run this software too. This software can be run on an iPad, on a laptop, on a computer. So it's really robust, whereas a lot of the other stuff that we're kind of putting out in the field is pretty much iPad driven. You could run it off the tablets that you have as well. So I know that we've run into that in the past. For some reason, Microsoft product and Entry software, it works, but it's not necessarily seamless as in iPads. So this stuff will be more seamless because it's using, just like he said, software as a service. It's pretty much running off of either an application or a website. So.
And if the particular department doesn't want to jump on now, but say next February, we want to do that, then they can always pay for their implementation piece and Novotics do it, or you and Gabe. If it's an easy one, you and Gabe can do it.
And that's the biggest thing. We're just trying to make certain that we stress that the implementation is the main key. But for most of the offices that I see here, unless you come up with something that I just absolutely cannot even wrap my head around, that's where I would probably go ask those guys and see if they could give me some pointers first, because we do have in some of the line items on this, there's some training days on there as well. Those can be taken off, but it's like a 2 or 3 training days, which basically allows Dave and I to get more instruction on the process.
I think as much knowledge as possible is going to be key because, like you said, implementation is key. Everybody around this table, especially the clerk's office, understands issues that we've had with Munis from the get-go, and a lot of it was because of the implementation on the front end, not necessarily, I mean, there are some issues on what it can do, I think, but I think the biggest issues that we've had is that it wasn't necessarily implemented the way it could have been as robustly, and we are paying for that now.
And I will say that this does come with training for any individual that would like to have training in it as well. It's not just Gabe and I, whenever we sign an agreement. This is all offices get training in this. It's specific for what they're doing. So whoever you deem necessary for training, that's up to you guys, will then come it'll be either in-house or online, and we'll have training videos or training with one-on-one with someone else from robotics. That will be a part of this as well. And then those training days, if someone comes to us and says, hey, I don't know how to do this, and Gabe and I don't know how to do it either because we weren't sitting in on that specific class, we can use those days to then help train them up even further. That's just, I know that comes from a different, it comes from the upbringing, I can say, I guess, from the assessor's office. That's how, whenever we would sign an agreement, we would have those extra training days just in case as well. So that's where I kind of brought that a little bit along with it. If that's something that the group does not like, we can have that stricken as well. So didn't want to hide that.
Okay, so everybody's going to figure out whether they want it in their department and then get with you as far as what they're going to need to come up with money for implementation. And then, Paul, since you've kind of been spearheading it on your end, you want to follow up with your departments and see which of your departments are going to want to do this, and then let Tim know. So, for instance, planning and engineering, if they wanted to do it, then Tim could say, well, I'm comfortable that we could spin them up and implement them, but IT we couldn't. I'm not saying that you couldn't, but whatever that is, and then we would have an idea not only for the elected official offices around the table, but also the departments. We already know that emergency management wants to be implemented, but just have that conversation with the other departments as well. That way we'll have all the information when we come back.
One more question. Will Novotix hold us to this quote?
Yes, that one is still valid. I think is that the one that was
This
given
one is saying
recently?
the same valid till December 27th. I see that.
I think there was one, we got a new one recently, but it's around the same price. Yeah,
Same price.
We did a little bit of their things, and it was a little bit different, but we actually benefited because they lowered the price actually for the standard agreement for us. So we actually benefited for once from a price change.
See, we drag our feet and get a better price.
So
We've been studying my shopping.
So yeah, if you guys have any questions, just feel free to reach out.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. All right, item 8, discussion possible action regarding a recommendation to budget board to transfer $75,000 from general fund reserve to juvenile detention M&O. Hannah.
Hi. So it is, we are 5,000 less than I asked you for last year, so I'm excited about that. But it's the same thing as last year. Our flat budget comes through, and I can't tell you in August what any of our utilities or food or anything else is going to look like until the spring. So we're now kind of rounding the corner on last quarter. This is a very conservative estimate, but I'd rather estimate high and have the money. And we, as you can see, every year we turn it right back over to you if we don't use it. So it's food, it's utilities. We only need it in detention this year. We don't need any in bureau this year. We've had a lot less bureau maintenance and operations things that we've had to do within the courthouse and the building. We've been really detention heavy on repairs this year, so that's why we're shorter in detention. And then majority of our costs are in detention. So uniforms have gone up strategically. Food costs, our count this week was at 74 out of 78 beds. So whereas last year we saw kind of a downward spiral a little bit in population. You guys have seen in the news what's happening in the community right now, and a lot of that violence is unfortunately being done by juveniles. So our count is high, and it is of the highest offenders. So like I said, we're a little under than what we asked for last year, but that's Grant and I's best estimate of what it'll take us between utilities and food to get us through the end of the year. We estimate, we always have an estimate for food that we keep him under every single week. He budgets, our food manager budgets every week to make sure regardless of count, we're under a certain amount, whether he has to change the menu. But we're having to work much closer this year with child nutrition than we have in the years past. Child nutrition's guidelines have gotten much more specific and much more stringent, meaning we're having to have whole wheat, everything, which of course costs more. Our food costs have skyrocketed. We've been working with the purchasing department. They've helped us a lot with getting vendors more secured in their contracts because literally, I mean, we'll get to the point where we place an order and they'll call us and say, we can't fill it unless you're going to pay X amount. And it's food for menus that have already been approved by the dietitian. So then we have to kind of play that shell game back and forth to get those reapproved. But that's what we're looking at for the end of the year. This is Grant's first full year as my business manager. So Grant literally last week said, I don't know how you guys budget this. And that's something that we kind of in item 9, what I want to talk to you guys about also is there's just parts of our budget that are volatile. Utilities is the biggest one. That we just have a really hard time with a crystal ball estimating, are we going to have a hot summer, a cool summer? What did the groundhog say? Like, it just kind of makes us go back and forth a lot. We spent last year $329,000 on utilities alone. And that's something that is so volatile that we just never know. And so we've estimated conservatively to get us through the year. And what we don't use for food and utilities, we'll send you right back.
So for item 8, the 75,000, I mean, that's pretty much in line with what you had on the watch list, except it was for 25,000.
Correct.
So, okay. I mean,
That
that's,
covers what, about 4 dozen eggs?
Yeah, these days. Depending on how many chickens you have.
but that is both utilities and food
Correct.
to get you through the
Yes,
fiscal
that's
year.
to get us through on M&O through July.
How much are you estimating of the 75,000 is food, and how much is it that you're needing for utilities?
We're gonna need about 52,000 more on utilities.
Okay.
Estimated.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Hannah, you mentioned
So 23,000 on food.
you're at 74 right now, at 78 now. I can't recall, we recently got back our daily rate study that we've been doing over the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
What was the number that they project our cost is?
Was it? I want to say it was over 400.
What?
Our last hard one was 323. I want to say it was 40 something. 4. I can find that out.
And the state gave us some more money, but it
They
was
did,
specific
specific
to
for rates.
salaries. And what is the reimbursement rate that they're paying again?
Reimbursement is the daily rate for detention beds.
Exactly, I can find that and give it to you.
It's still
Significant half, probably.
not even a half.
Yeah.
And how quickly is OJA, there for a while we were having a problem with them housing people that had been, for lack of a better term, adjudicated.
Sure.
We got it changed. They recognized that they were on the hook, so they're paying us 100% there.
Yes.
Are they moving those people out pretty quick?
They are for the most part. Kojak is experiencing some issues with staffing, and so as they're able to open beds, they're pulling our kids. It kind of depends on if there's a kid who is extreme, has extreme health issues, has extreme violence issues, they're a little slower to move them through the process, but they've been doing, we make a phone call if we start getting too full and saying, hey, you've got X amount of kids on the watch list, we need them moved, and they've worked well with us.
And
So better than last
year. Have you heard anything, maybe looking to make another rate adjustment?
I have not heard anything about a rate adjustment. The money that they gave for salaries, that rate was so substantial. I haven't heard anything about a new rate for the new year.
How many of your detainees are Oklahoma County?
How many are like murder one? Or so the way we classify ours are.
I think he's asking, are we housing any children from any other counties?
No, we take no residential beds. All of our kids are.
This is all Oklahoma.
Correct.
Yeah, there are no contracts. We have a provision in the contract that would allow us, if we chose to do that the state would pay whatever they pay us for that bed, and then that sending county would have to pay, I think, what'd you say, Hannah, 400?
Sure.
So if the state rate is
So they
100,
stop.
we would charge them the balance, which is 300, and
Yes.
we don't.
And we
That's
don't.
good.
I think we are one of the only facilities, if not the only facility in the state that does not take residential beds, but I don't have the bed space. Because like I said, we've been at 74 out of 78 beds this week. So I get a call probably once a month from, not OJ specifically, but other facilities asking us if we'll take residential beds, and we don't.
It's good to know.
Are you guys still utilizing the ankle monitor program?
We are. We've had 40 kids over the past several months on it. So that's 40 that we didn't have in-house. It cost me $3 a day for an ankle monitor versus $400 a day to have them in-house. So we've been really excited about that. Problem is, we saw population dip a little bit, that we were able to get those kids out. But unfortunately, the level of crimes is just rising and rising. And so it's kind of like we thought. We got the most vital kids out that we could. Now it's literally sometimes a shell game. We're going, okay, Judge, I know that you've had to put this kid in on a sanction, but if I have 2 murder ones come in, we have to let him out. We're at the point where the judges are almost had their hands tied with what they can do and what they can sanction, because we just don't have the bed space. Because our offenders are getting higher and higher. We don't have kids in our facility that just stole grandma's car and went on a joyride. We have the higher level first degree offenders that's what's filling up our beds.
What percentage of your beds would you say are those higher level things?
First degree murder ones were at 13, 14?
Yeah, 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
I think about 50% of our population is probably youthful
Is why we're above.
or higher.
Bruce, how many did you guys used to have when they were at the adult detention center on that?
We had a half a pod. I think.
Yeah.
I think with 12 cells.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking this is more than even back then.
We have female murder ones.
Oh,
That's few of those.
This is federally mandated.
Yes. So the federal law changed in 21 that no juvenile can be in an adult facility that's not licensed. There is not an adult facility in the state that is licensed, which why would they want to? I don't think anyone is in a hurry to get that license either.
What happens if we run out of beds?
The judges will have to take lowest risk and release.
Which it sounds like what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what's happening now. Right now, if we had 10 murder ones come in today, they would release the kids that are in on probation violations, sanctions because they went AWOL, things like that. They would release those kids, and then it would be least offenders would get released.
See, the problem is, like on the adult detention side, when we ran into the issue a couple years ago with this situation with the juveniles, we were able to remove them to Pawnee County, right? And they were able to stay there for a short period of time while things were taken care of. There's no options on that anymore. When you run out of space, you can't move them anywhere else because there's no other juvenile facilities that have any room anywhere.
Not that are staffed. There are facilities that have beds, but not that can.
What's an example of a crime that would be released?
Crime that would be released. So, like, if a kid is on probation for burglary, and he goes AWOL from his home and isn't staying home, the judge is going to put out a pickup order for him and put out a warrant for him. So he could be in on a sanction because they're worried he's going to be a flight risk. Or, to be honest with you, some of our more simples are simple domestics. A juvenile in possession of a firearm after adjudication is only a misdemeanor. So it's they're pretty substantial crimes that we get relief.
Okay, we wandered just a little, but no, it's all related to the funding needed because the number of kids and everything is directly related to, especially the food cost piece. Some of your utility expense increases unless you're far enough down that you can shut entire pods down.
Sure.
That's not gonna affect
And that
your
we haven't done
utilities.
that in
But
years.
Yeah. So, but definitely on the food cost side, it is very relevant.
Hannah, so on this, is this something that, so you're just looking for a one-time influx of cash, or is this something that you would add to your estimate?
Well, we asked for 80 last year. We did add this cost into our estimate of needs for this next year. Now, our request this next year has several different options in there. I'll put it that way. But we did include, we put actual estimates in our estimate of needs, what we're estimating to spend.
How many years in a row have you had to come in and ask for this at the end of the year?
This is our second year. 3 years ago we came in, but it was not substantial and we were able because we had capital money from the year before to cover. So this is our second year.
Okay.
Last year was 80. Now last year part of that was salaries. However, but with the OJA raises, we reduced some of those raises that we gave to ensure we did not have to ask you guys for salary and benefits money this year.
And you're looking okay on payouts and stuff?
For today, yes, sir.
You know where to find us. I will make a motion on item 8 to transfer $75,000 from the general fund reserve to juvenile detention M&O.
Second. Are you wanting to specify one time or ongoing?
I think this would be considered ongoing.
I do too.
Thank you for that. Yes, I will amend my motion to include that it's coming from ongoing funds.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend the budget board to transfer $75,000 from general fund reserves out of our ongoing bucket to juvenile detention for maintenance and operations to cover anticipated insufficient funds for utilities and food expense for the rest of this fiscal year. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right. Item 9, discussion possible action regarding processes to fund utilities, Oklahoma County Juvenile Justice Center. I think this is something that we can have a little bit more conversation when we're talking about the budget, unless somebody wants to get into the weeds right now. But I think maybe having some conversation with Keith as well, because I know we're struggling. I'm assuming we on this side are as well. We have for years struggled with determining a good way of anticipating what those expenses are. So maybe there's been an epiphany there. Maybe you guys can do it.
I just wanted to bring it up. When Grant and I have been pouring through our budget this year, one of the things that Grant said was that I don't understand how you're ever able to estimate. And like, what do you cut when utilities are high? He said, like, where does that come from? I said, well, we don't spend anything for the first 6 months of the year. And then we hold as much as we can to get to March and then see how much we're going to need or what we're going to need. So literally it comes down to like my camera servers right now in detention. I could use a new server, but it's $10,000. I had to buy a new hot water heater yesterday that was $12,000.
Does Juvenile have a PVA building or no?
No, it is not.
So does every department that is in a non-PVA building, do they pay utilities?
I think I'm the only one that I've heard pays their own utilities. Now, obviously, you fund me for it. It's not like you're like figure it out. You give me the money for the utilities, but then when it's time for me to try and figure out how much I can spend on uniforms, if I have a high month in June, and so as far as like with other departments, when they go into June, you guys know how much money you have, and you know within reason we have this much to spend on projects that we may have asked for next year or things like that. I have no idea when we get to May or June because I don't know what those utilities bills are going to look like at all sometimes. They've jumped upwards of, at one point in 1 month, I had my electric bill jumped 63%. And that could be $16,000.
On a year-over-year basis?
Sure. So, like for electric alone.
Sounds like you're a candidate for average billing.
Yes, they call me. So FY22 electric alone. 22 I spent 176. 23 I spent 223. Last year I spent over 184. This year I've already spent 175, and I still have 3 months to go. And that averages anywhere from, so for instance, just this year, February my electric bill was $14,000. March it was $26,000. Mm-hmm. So that's a $12,000 jump. That last year my electric bill in March was $12,000.
Well, why the EKG though? I mean, generally with utilities, you kind of see at least some sort of trend. I mean, is it because times like when you shut pods down, is it saving you money or?
No, it's just overall usage of the building. Right. Getting an answer out of OG&E of why our bill jumps is about like you calling on your house, like they don't know and can't tell us.
But you haven't closed pods for years.
No.
And if you're at 60 versus 75, I would think your heat and air, your lights that are on, all that stuff is going to be pretty consistent.
Sure.
So to Brandon's point,
Shore power never gets cheaper, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe seasonal adjustments, whether you're in the, cold months or hot months, you might see some differences, but
It's also how they bill it. At one point, when they did the add-on in detention, most of our bills are split like 4 different ways. Like we have how many electric bills that come in a month, Grant? Like 6?
I believe so, yeah.
Because there's different meters for different parts of the building, for different parts of detention. And sometimes, this is just my opinion, they won't say this, but I think sometimes the utility company lumps those. And so we won't get some certain months and then they send it the next month and it's double and then they don't. And so between all of our meters, I just think it's very inconsistent. And so like literally, I mean, we pulled the fact that it jumped from 176 to 223 in 1 year.
But then it goes back down next year.
Yeah, sure, down to 180. Yeah, 184 the next year.
So, Joe, you may remember this. I don't know for sure. We've had conversations in the past about having, whether it was OG&E or another company, or going out to bid, some energy efficiency studies done on our buildings. Do you recall if those studies involve your payments and bills and that kind of stuff? I was thinking that it did.
I don't remember.
Because if we do something like that, I think being able to go in and if you have 6 bills, you get, OG&E for the month of January, I want the 6 bills for these 6 meters, and then we can, see what they add up to. And then in February, then we'll be able to see if you are getting them lumped some months and some months not.
They did come in and we did a walkthrough with them, and one thing that they identified was our lights. And so we actually participated in a rebate program where they changed 80%, probably even more than that, of the lights in the building to the LEDs versus the older fluorescent ones. And we got a substantial rebate for that. So that saved us for a couple of years. So that's part of that, maybe a little bit of it is that rebate falling on or off.
Is there 6 total meters for the whole building?
Just for electric, I think so.
Well, the reason I ask is part of that building is rented, right? I mean, some people.
No, that's the next building. That's the family tree. That's another building. I don't think any of those are on ours.
DHS leases.
Well, sure. Yeah. DHS leases a part of our building.
Right. So I was.
But you're talking about the family tree. I'm not aware that they are on any of our meters.
I just didn't know if maybe some of that bill was.
We probably want to make sure.
It wouldn't surprise me.
DHS.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. I'll say it wouldn't shock me. I don't know that to be true, but.
Will you verify?
I will.
On that other building.
But I just wanted to bring it up and be like, hey, it would be a whole lot easier for me to budget if I wasn't trying to figure out if it was going to be a hot summer or not on utilities. But I know that also can affect our MGT as well, because I know utilities add into that. If it's about the labor when it comes to MGT time, I'll go through the invoices myself. If it would mean that I could get a little closer on my budget to actually be able to forecast and not have to worry about utilities.
I mean, not to hijack the item. Well, I mean, not to hijack the item, but kind of to tell you why. I mean, maybe it's something we do try to dive into, because I know that, like, for example, we pay utilities for Spencer, our Midway City location, that comes out of cash account. And I'm not suggesting that we change that. I just mean, I don't even know what percentage of offices and groups have utilities that come out. I mean,
we do on the highway side.
On
the highway side.
On the yards as well. Okay.
Yeah, but it's going to be a mere fraction of what she's
Sure. So maybe the district yards, and then like us too, is, I mean, probably everybody else has experienced that, so I don't know.
I just wanted to bring it up because I hate that I'm always so volatile when it comes to the spring, and I'm like, I think maybe 75, but at the same time, utilities is over half of my assets.
Christy, did you guys get that for reset?
Well, we don't, but I think we're about to.
On the gas side, Christy.
Oh, gas side.
Yeah, it's on the
We're going to
gas
split it for gas.
Okay.
We can certainly pick up our share of resale. I didn't realize.
Hey, maybe
I
we'll
think
pay-
I'm hearing, Brandon said
Maybe
we
we'll
need to
pay
just
him.
offload all of this headache
It's
to
not
Keith.
good. We need to look at
I love that.
I'll buy him lunch.
He's not here.
I mean, what is the determination? I guess maybe it's not. What's the determination for a PBO building versus not? Who
If
flips
it's
that?
income
who
producing, if
flips
it's an
that coin?
enterprise. If it's a building we bought it's considered like an enterprise fund.
Uh-huh.
So if it's a building we got to hopefully produce income.
Yeah.
It's a PBA building.
Probably like.
But a building like this is just for our own county use.
It's ownership. So when we acquired Kraus, when the county acquired Kraus, wanted the ability to charge rent, which the Department of Wildlife did for a while. So when the property was acquired, the title is to the PBA. So, I mean, it can be, any of the buildings technically could be moved from one entity to the other, but
And I figured the trigger was the income generating. I just didn't know what makes it a PBA building and what not. Like, for example, I mean, now that we're not in an income generating building, it's still, but it's all our PBA, but like our Midland City Station's not. So I didn't know what, again, I didn't know where that coin was flipped.
A good example of social services, when we had it, it was TG&A and our social services. It was a county building, but they've now switched it to a PBA building to hopefully lease out or whatever they're gonna do with it. But it's now become a PBA building.
do you guys transfer ownership?
I know Keith added it to the PBA budget and the revenues are, I mean, there's money being appropriated in PBA for social services building with its own department.
I think it's just for the utilities and stuff that they're paying separate out of there. But I think that
So
the
PBA,
title of it is still
No,
not to
I think we may
PBA.
have actually transferred title to PDA.
Really?
Because we're generating income on storage from the DA where they were previously paying, private.
it's fairly
interest.
new. I mean,
Okay.
like,
Is that,
Yeah.
doesn't that sound right, Paul?
That was.
Okay.
Yep, the money for the roof replacement is also coming out of
PBA.
PBA.
Yeah, so it's just a product of who holds the title to the building, whether it's PBA or otherwise. Now, why one entity holds the title instead of the other is because the income generation. I think we may need to look at some of the buildings to determine if we need to move ownership of them to the county or from the county to PBA. Whichever way. All right. That was a big discussion for something we were gonna wait.
we tend to do that.
All right, Blake, are you ready? All right, item 10, discussion possible action regarding an update on the 2025 tax estimate. Blake, you got great news, right?
Always.
Thanks, guys.
What's great?
Hey, Grant, tell Casey I said congratulations. Appreciate it, yeah.
This is just the estimated ad valorem revenue for the year 2025. It's got all the three parts that the values are made up of: real estate, personal, and public service there in the first three lines. The 2024, it shows what the value was as of last year. And then the 2025 is the estimated value for this year with the change. So as of right now, on the personal, you can tell it is quite a bit down. That is because personal property returns weren't due till March 15th is when they have to turn those in. So we have not worked all of them. So I don't foresee it probably being that low, but that's what the numbers were when we ran them at the time. So that's what I left it. Estimate of, just in case it doesn't go up. But I would think that's gonna go higher. And there's cushion in the real estate portion. Since we're in the appeal season, not knowing how much that's gonna, and commercial notices are usually the biggest and where biggest changes could be seen. That's what we're just now starting to get those in. So we still have a long ways to go on that, but that's why there is a cushion on the real estate side, the personal. Out of the 27,000 business personal accounts, probably only about 10,000 of them have been worked.
So that's why there is a big cushion there on the public service. Those numbers, I just put the same numbers as what they were last year. You do see a little difference. That is because after they were certified, there were some corrected certificates that came in from the tax commission to us. There were an increase. So that's why it looks like the numbers are the same as what they were certified each time, but that's why you shows an increase because of some corrected certificates after the fact, after tax roll was completed. So that's those. Then there's a column for all the TIF information in the green. Unless, does anyone have any questions over the top portion?
On line 4, that's probably the highest TIF number we've seen.
Yeah. Line 4, that the red at the very far right, that is tax dollars for the
Boston Juvenile.
Yes.
$4 million.
Yes. And it'll probably go over before for this year just because, like I said, all the personal property. You'll see some of these TIFs here that show a TIF change from last year to this year that's a decrease. More than likely, that's because the personal property aspect of that TIF has not been worked yet. So usually there's maybe one percentage decrease, and there's quite a few throughout there. And I think it's just because it hasn't all been worked in there yet. So there's a good chance that'll go over 4 million. But there is one new TIF that is starting this year. It is line 19. It's the new Oklahoma City TIF. They're calling it the Adventure District TIF. It is over there north of Remington Park. And it is a small one. There was only 3 parcels in that TIF. No. So
7-year TIF.
What?
It's going to have the volleyball.
7-year TIF?
Yeah,
I don't believe that's what it says.
The hotel. I think what they're trying to do is gear up for softball.
Okay.
Hey, Blake, how many TIFs fell off last year?
None.
None?
And he says that's a
2026.
It'll be redone to go into another.
That's all that happened.
the new TIF, I guess. And I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, but Mr. Pez, nice to meet you. He says he's on that TIF committee, and that's a 7-year TIF. But in the documents, it states it's 25 years. That's why I put it to last till 2049. But I'll have to relook at those.
Yeah, if you relook at it, look at the amendment. The amendment is for 7 years. We have to go back in and amend it to 7 years. That was amended to part of negotiations with the school district, which is
middle school, yes. So I'll have to go look and see if we've got it because I just took the documents that were sent and it said 25 years on there. So that I will go in and change that. So that's the new one. There were 3 vacant parcels. There is one parcel that has a building that's on there for this year. So that's why you do see the increment on there. All the rest of the TIFs are still ongoing. The biggest one, which we will see a little relief, line 5 and 6 is the TIF 2, which is the Bricktown downtown TIF here. That will fall off. We just have this year and next year of that, and then it will be complete. So we will see an increase, and that is the large portion of the TIF increment. So there will be quite a bit coming back at that time. So 2027 TIF year, we should see an increase, a good size increase to the county's budget for that. So that's all the TIFs. It's up from last year 3%. Like I said, I think a lot of that red will probably go black on the percentage once all the personal properties. And then the other numbers down lower, there's a line for the additional homestead reimbursement, which we do not get reimbursed for, but we put that on there. 5-year manufacturing, which is a year behind, so we'll get reimbursed the 2024 year for this year, which is line 31, and the 2025 will be reimbursed for next year. So it just lines it all out in there and then shows what the estimate is for this year. That's all I have, unless anyone has any further questions.
No questions, but I did remember we did lose Choctaw too. So one did come off.
Well, I said it came off, but it should have came off at the end of the year before, but we didn't get the documents until September, so.
Thank you for that.
Should say Oklahoma City too.
Well, tip 1D came off, but that's been some years.
I believe that was
2 years or 3 years?
2 or 3 years.
Three.
I think
Midwest
it
City tip
Midwest City.
Yeah, it came off 8 years ago.
The first two. It can happen.
It does exist.
The only thing I could add to this, which you did a great job, is there are some legislative initiatives at the Capitol to impact that we're proposing that we would like to probably pass some information on these elected officials, just so they have an understanding that our fight is your fight. Because if we don't get it, you don't get it either. So we will try to do our best to get the information so that you can bring it to your associations. And hopefully we're able to level the playing field, at least have that impact.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Blake. This document is attached, so we don't need to receive it. Is there a motion to receive the report, though?
So moved.
Got a motion? Do we have a second? Second. Got a motion and a second to receive the report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oh, I did it finally. All right, motion passes. Item 11, discussion possible action regarding court services FY 25-26 estimated needs.
Hello, good afternoon. So I added this to the agenda because I had received the estimate of needs and I passed them on to the chairman, but I just wanted to check to see if there's anything. I wanted to add it up onto the agenda for discussion and see if there's anything you would like for me to assist with, or just wanted to add it for discussion to see what the plan is moving forward.
I'm not following.
Well, is it more of a question of, as far as court services, are we going to maintain that as a separate estimate of needs? Are we gonna roll that into, like, say, general government or some other such? And then probably a similar question related to the social services, item number 12 as well. Correct. I think it's more along the lines of the discussion.
I think I know we had team up in general government, and then you had the DA working out of that 1260. I think that's where that was being funded, and then CJA I think was, I don't have my notes on this. I can't remember if that was, I think that was put up with CJA and general government. So we need to look. I mean, I still think team and CJA need to be general government. They're outside entities that we're paying. They don't need to be a department with an estimate of needs. I mean, they submit their budget.
Right,
and
but
have
they're
a
just a
contract.
line item based on their contract.
Yeah. So really, it's just this little portion for the DA, how to fund that. It was a memo last, or a MOU. It was an MOU last time.
There's an MIS piece too, though, right?
The MIS was the discussion around the GPS monitoring costs. So those would need to be addressed. So we've got a MOU with team that needs to be discussed in regards to their budget moving forward. We have an MOU with the detention center, and then an MOU with the district attorney for Kathy's.
And then we've got our internal IT department.
And
So
then
we have
internal.
4 entities in one thing.
And so I just wanted to bring it up for discussion, and so that way, if someone needs to look at that estimate for presentation.
Would the plan be to roll all of that together into one category, or to keep it in 4 separate categories?
Well, I think that's the question as far as how to best move forward.
I think having it in multiple categories is to the confusion.
Right,
I mean, I think if we had it all in one category,
consolidated and simplified.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, we've talked about maybe whether we need to consolidate who all is providing the services, but also we need to consider how it's funded, not necessarily just the amount. I mean, that's been discussed as well, that we need to figure out how we're going to get it all adjusted back to where it was. But I think we need to talk about the procedures that are there as well.
Well, as far as court services goes, are there any other expenses that are not related to what is encompassed in those MOUs?
Not that way.
So essentially, I mean, if those are line items in general government, is court services separate estimate of needs even necessary?
Is which estimates?
They're not under, so those are not under line items of general government. They're in the court services account.
Right
And
now.
so.
Those
right now-
three are in court service.
So that was my question, part of the question, and.
To keep those there
Are we keeping
separate
Yeah, or do we want to eventually put them, depending on what is.
in general
decided
government
here.
because they are MOUs?
Correct.
But if
And then who's responsible for working on those budgets and.
Right.
the person that manages the general fund, general government budget.
So that would be me.
But being able to see what the cost of court services is for the county, having it in general government. It's one thing, 'cause I know back in the day, I had suggested that we do that contract for CJA out of there. I still think that's the appropriate way, but it's one contract for everything that they do. We're not doing that here, so it's not like we would have one line item in general government for court services.
It would be 30.
It'd be 30, but we also are paying for part of it in IT, in our IT department. So it just, it's not going to be as clean from an accounting standpoint in this instance, because we've got multiple folks providing services.
Yeah, and for when we do have the presentation regarding each one of those contracts, there needs to be someone responsible for sitting down with the team, looking over what their proposed budget is, and then, and what we have available in funds, and making sure that
Negotiating those
we
contracts.
negotiate those contracts. And
The
so,
contracts and.
and then making a recommendation or, presenting that on behalf of those contracts. So right now it's not under general government, and so it's in a separate estimate of need. And so just wanted to put it on here for discussion in regards to what we possibly need to be prepared for moving forward and making those presentations.
But I think Team's already got a proposed budget for next year, so you at least give a talk to us.
It is, and it's beyond what is available in that fund.
Well, teams out of general government.
Teams, I don't have it on my line item for my general government estimate of need. It's under court services.
Paid out of the court services budget. And you all supplemented $385,000 to get through the year. The other issue that you all have to be mindful of is, and Christy's talked a lot about it, is that GPS issue. If we're not careful, we give a blank check because every time the court determines somebody's going on an engine monitor, we have no idea knowing what those costs are going to be. So that is something that is that needs to be taken into consideration. And how do you work with courts? How do you work with the team? In the contract last year, it was best practices, and we all heard the best practices don't charge for that service. However, we had, for those that were able, previously charged and be able to build a somewhat self-sustaining fund. So those are all things that Jessica's going to look at, and then I presume bring the policy to governance and then ultimately to the board working in conjunction with the budget board. So those are some significant issues.
It's to Joe's point, I mean, it's something that I can speak to. Whenever Chris came and talked to our group, he had brought up the best practices. We can't charge for ankle monitors. And then later on in the conversation, he said something that kind of piqued my interest because he said that one thing that they provide as a service that we weren't providing is that we pay for the first month of sober living. And then he had mentioned that after that, once they get them a job, then they pay for their own sober living. So then I questioned, well, if they can pay for their own sober living, then why at that point are they still indigent receiving a free ankle monitor? And he just went back to the best practice line. And so I'm not sure how to navigate that. It seems like team is going to be pretty rigid on the not charging for ankle monitors, even though I don't believe that they're indigent regardless of the determination, because if they're paying for other items, I don't know why they couldn't pay for a relatively inexpensive ankle monitor, but I mean, maybe I'm the one that's can't do math.
And I also, just from looking at the budget that was provided by team that I had saw previous to this meeting, there are other areas that they can cut in regards to training. I mean, they can possibly train, their employees with funds that they have for teams specifically. There is substantial costs that whenever they put together their Salesforce program, I think that they had hired a consultant vendor to train them on that. So I think that could have been dropped off. And then questioning, I believe there was about $120,000 in administrative costs plus another $90,000 of other services. And so really sitting down with them in order to determine, what is needed this next year and then what falls within the amount of funds that we have for this year's budget. And then coming back and saying, okay, well, these are kind of non-negotiables and possible increases that they may need, but I'd be happy to sit down with them and work through that, work through the DA in regards to Kathy's needs, or if that's the appropriate place to have those services moving forward. I'd be happy to do all that. I just need to know if that's the will of this committee and if we're going to move it under general government.
I think just, this probably doesn't matter. It might be semantics, but when you said Kathy's needs, I don't think
the employees,
the employee that's providing that function, I think we've come in here and we've had an employee tell us that they're not going to work for this entity and they're not going to work for that entity and they're only going to do this. And we can't have that. We need to look at what is in the best interest of the county as a whole. And if that fits, then that's great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I think we've got to have that mindset.
and I could take this to policy and governance and get direction from P&G, what that looks like. I just know that we'll be having discussions on estimate of needs coming up quick, and I just wanted to be best prepared if that is something that's going to fall within my responsibility, so that they can be productive meetings.
I think you said that you had seen a proposed budget from team.
Yes.
I don't believe I've seen that.
I can share it with you.
Well, now you just you said it wasn't within the funds we had available. So what is that proposed request at this point?
I don't have that on me.
It's $30,000 less
than what we gave.
It is
them
less.
this year.
Yeah, it's $30,000.
It's $30,000 less.
Yes.
Than what we funded.
But still continuing those.
But we increased it by
That we increased it by 300.
Okay, so it's.
Okay. So, and that was their piece. That wasn't taken into the DA's piece and the CJA's piece.
So I was kind of piggyback on what he was saying because I was going to ask that. So, because he did bring that budget in, it looks like he's asking for $30,000 less. But knowing that we don't have that much money, at least assigned currently to that line item, what services does that mean that they will have to cut? And kind of some of the points that I brought up, in the discussion last time, it's a little bit concerning from us as a perspective in the county because all that blame is going to get placed back on us. Well, we started this great program, and all of a sudden we've got to cut X, Y, and Z. And we look like we're the ones on the hook for it. And so, I don't know how to remedy this thing. I know whenever we gave them a $300,000, we called it one time money that we were going to go back and circle back around. But
absolutely, and that was what I was referring to. Yeah, what was the original funding amount? That was over what we ended up creating MOUs for, and they were able to shave off that roughly $30,000 by not hiring one of their FTEs that were outlined in their budget needs seriously.
But to me, you're shaving 30, but you're shaving, it's not cutting, you're cutting a position that the county thought was going to be providing something, and you're not providing that. So it's not really necessarily a savings because you're not getting that service item.
Yeah. And let me be clear, I have not sat down with Mr. Steele regarding his budget. It just was passed to me at a lunch that was something that they were working on before I came into this position. And so I haven't had budget conversations with him specifically.
But again, I would like to even restate at least our position. I mean, I'm not saying that, I mean, like even last time, I don't think it's fair that Chris take all the cuts either. You know, I mean, I feel like he came in good faith and he presented a budget with a number that he knew the budget was at least much closer. And then at some point we learned that that wouldn't work. And so the jail was able to get some, the DA was able to get some, and this ITB showed up. I feel like that at least if we're going to you know, tariff on them. I mean, I think it probably needs to be at least some percentage. Well, you know, it doesn't at least seem to me that it's right to cut one guy and let everybody else get their full amount, but whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I agree.
Main discussion, that's what Brandy said, is it eventually going to fall under general government? Is it going to stay within its own court services account? And then do I need to assist in any way in regards to those discussions on those MOUs and preparing a budget to present if it does fall under general government?
My personal opinion right now is if we got multiple pieces doing multiple pieces of it, that we probably need to keep it the way it is, and a court services budget, and then in that budget you have M&O line items for team, for district attorney, for CJA, and you're paying those MOUs out of that. Now, if we get to a situation to where one entity can provide all of the functions like the way we used to have it, then you could just put it up in the general government and it would be one MOU. It'd be clear to see what is there, but otherwise it's going to be really confusing to look and see for the public to pull up a budget and say, what is Oklahoma County paying for court services? Well, you look at general government and you know,
A whole bunch of different contracts.
Yeah.
And then I guess in regards to determining who's going to meet with individuals in those MOUs, would that be decided in policy governance discussions moving forward?
That would seem
the
to be
chiefs?
the appropriate.
Okay, and I'm happy with that. I just wanted to offer assistance. So that's all I have in regards to.
I think the concern around the table, and speak up if anybody has a differing recollection, but I think the concern around the table was the increase in expense that was pushed, and I was over there part of this, so I'm not pointing fingers, but BOCC made a decision to change direction, and it required the county to be on the hook for a substantial increase. And there was concern about that on this end. So I think that if there was conversations at policy and governance and y'all were able to figure the situation out to where the funds, the expenses that were needing to come up with to pay for were what was anticipated this time last year, which was what the Oklahoma County Court Services budget had to do the whole thing, then I think we're not looking at coming up with any more money. So you guys do that, and then if that works, that works. The issue was that there was more money needed, so then we had to come here. So if through those discussions, if policy and governance can't figure out a way to continue the program, whatever it is, 300 and something thousand less than what we're paying this year, because that was the increase. If you need more money, then you need to come back here and say, listen, we've looked at this and we can't figure out a way. What we want to do is this, and it's going to cost this much more, and then we get a conversation. Is that kind of where everybody is?
Yes. Who is the requisitioning officer for court services?
I am. good discussion. The next one is social services.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Chairman. So social services also was one that, poor John Wilkerson, he'd like to join me. But John Wilkerson signed off on that estimate of need, but I did notice that Day Living Centers is an additional contract that was under social services. And so if there was discussion by DET in the past or moving forward in regards to creating a separate account just for, just for pharmacy, or under benefits or whatever that looks like, daily living centers, I just wanted you to be aware that, of course, their contract ends June 30 and it has gone out to bid twice, both times with a 2-year option, 1 year and then option to renew. And so it expires June 30. And so we would just need clarification on if that stays within that social services budget or if it's something that we want to go back out to bid. And if it's something that went over to general government, just wanted to see if there's anything that I needed to be involved in regards to that contract.
So that's a specific statutory authorization separate from what was deleted by the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
So you could put that as a general government line item and there wouldn't be.
Because it's one thing.
It's one thing.
And that's roughly $160,000. And so I would just need direction, I guess, from policy and governance in regards to if we're going to continue to provide that funding, if we're going to go out to bid for services. I do know from my history with day living centers that whenever it went out to bid for senior services, the reason why it was awarded twice was just because they had the most locations and covered the most geographic area. But we can put that on for P&G for discussion. I just was curious if it needed to go under general government.
And I started the process of combining the budgets and then they requested them to be split out. So I did just a proposed social services budget, which is the county pharmacy, and then a separate benefit budget. But kind of what this board wants, at your direction, do you want me to combine those into one budget or leave them two separate budgets?
I think pharmacy can, as long as we can still track how the pharmacy's doing. I mean, I think it's fine being in employees' benefits.
I thought pharmacy was going to be in employee benefits budget, not the budget that has your salary and,
My recollection of this discussion was the operating expenses for the pharmacy would come out of the benefits
that we use to pay claims and all of that with the pharmacy, because that's part of,
Our plan.
part of our plan. Mm-hmm. So I think all of that pharmacy expense can go into the employee benefits separate from your employee benefits general fund account. Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the one offshoot of social services that was left in there, which is the senior services program, could go to general government because it's just it's a one-off thing.
Be easier for you. Just from my knowledge, is it this committee that determines whether or not we're going to continue to fund that, or is it when is that determined?
Budget board's the one that makes the determination on funding.
Okay.
We'll make recommendations, but this is something that's been traditionally a BOCC thing, so I think it would go to them. They would decide if they want to continue doing that, and then it would come to us to request the project.
The authorization to have the program is a BOCC authorization, and then we have to work together to make a decision to fund.
Okay. And PNG. Okay, just wanted to. Thanks for the training.
Without signing MOUs before.
Thank you. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
And just on a side note too, the budget surplus from the current social services budget, and we're just looking at salaries, keeping everything flat, except for a few changes, it'll leave a surplus of about $1.3 million for the overall county budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 13 Discussion possible action regarding Department Swing. That's all right. Have a good one. It's good seeing you. Departments 25-26 estimate of needs. What is this one for?
This is a general item for basic discussion, but also to carry forward to our next departmental meeting. So if there was any particular departmental need that needed to be discussed first, the needs that were placed on here. I don't think they have anything further. I think they touched on it.
Okay, yeah.
It was a catch-all. It's for
Yeah, so normally our catch-all is, and I think Cassie and I talked about waiting until the next one, and it's just regarding departments 25-26 estimate of needs that have already been presented. So that way it's clear that that isn't somebody coming in and providing new stuff.
Correct.
It's stuff that's already been discussed. So, okay. All right, we're left with two items. Item number
This one,
4
Oh, 4.
and 14, and they're both related to timing of meetings. So item 4, discussion possible action regarding a schedule for departmental meetings. This is what we traditionally do, schedule 2, 3, 4 days, something like that, half days, to where once all the departments have their estimate of needs completed, they will come in and make an explanation on their budget requests, either increases, decreases, whatever. And then that gives us an opportunity to ask some questions, and then we come back at a later date and discuss it a little more in detail. That's kind of the process that we've used in the past. Is that what we're wanting to do again?
For me, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. So on item 14, it looks like we've got special BET meetings from particular dates. Is there a reason why these dates were chosen on here?
Reviewing our scheduling calendar, staffing, all of that, other meetings, these are the available dates we have for the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. Do you recall last year, were we able to do those initial briefings with departments? Were we able to do that in 2 days, or was it 3?
3 days, which is how we've done it 23, 20, and 24.
Okay, so I think we probably need to do that as well. Schedule 3 days. And then from there, what we've done a lot is we'll have one special to have the conversations, the ongoing conversations, and then we can always use that meeting to recess instead of, calling multiple specials.
I think Cassie usually reached out to the departments to see which day.
Yes,
they were
within the 3.
Yeah, once
Yeah.
the dates were chosen, yeah, we reached out to these
To try and
schedule
schedule them to come in.
They're all afternoon.
that is the available time. Start time is 1:30 for this year.
We don't pick any morning available.
Even if we meet in another room.
I would have to go back and look. After vetting, this is what we have available for this type of informal signing.
You would think this room was named for them or something.
Exactly. They got their own special.
Well, I'll start off with the treasurer's office. The 14th through the 17th, on the 21st through the 24th, between Janice and myself, we're to be covered the whole time, with the exception of after 2:30 on the 23rd. So there's 8 days we can cover, except for after 2:30 on the 23rd. We're both out.
Well, as far as District 2 is concerned, my only concern would be April the 17th because we're butting up against a holiday weekend. I think availability is going to be limited on the 17th specifically because of that. I think otherwise,
mean, some will be here because there's a budget board, but I see what you're saying as far as our members.
Yes.
Yeah, this 17th would be difficult for me in the afternoon.
Chantel had some.
15th and 16th is fine.
Chantel, did you have a conflict with the 15th or the 16th?
Just the 15th.
You do the entire time.
Okay, why don't we do the 21st, 22nd, 23rd? Christy, did you have an issue with those?
It was only after 2:30 on the 23rd.
Well, hey,
We got
we
the
could be
16th.
done by then.
We could try the 16th. And then 21, 22, and leave 23 just in case.
The 16th, the 21st, and then the 22nd.
23rd, and then, I mean, if we're just presenting, I know my 3 questions I can have y'all ask, and the routine, and then I can always listen to those. Maybe we won't need the 23rd.
4 days, so that should be more than plenty.
I mean, we could keep in mind the 4th date in case any of the departments need to come back.
So we'll make a motion to do the 16th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd.
23rd if needed.
Yeah. I mean, and we can always, on the 22nd, we could always recess that. We wouldn't necessarily have to. Because we're going to try to schedule everybody on those 3 days, right?
Correct.
So let's just do the 3 days scheduling, and then everybody will be in a slot on those 3 days. And then if we run out of time, I think we'll probably hold, our stuff as much as possible to the end, because we'll be here no matter what. And then if some of us need to go on a different day, always do that. Just recess the 22nd until the next day. Come in and hammer it out. How long was it like a 3-hour deal when we did the 3 days?
It was sporadic. I tried to look to see, but one of the days I know you recessed for lunch and then you came back and you ended at about 2:30. That was a 9:30 start time last year.
Yeah, so I mean, we had full day there, and another day we did full day like that, didn't we? And then we did a half a day. If memory serves correct, so we may need all 4 days since we're not doing full days. Well, okay, how about this? If we are the reason why and I think most of you enjoy this room having our meetings is because we can have conversations like this. But when we're just having departments make a presentation of their requests, we're not necessarily in collaboration mode, right? We're kind of doing this. We're just having them present and ask some questions. We could do that in BOCC.
I can't get into that right at this time. This was better for this room.
Okay. Can you look and see? Because I would rather try to do this on full days like what we did before instead of afternoons because I think we're going to probably wind up needing more than 3 days. Whereas if we can do BOCC, then I think we could hammer that.
I wouldn't be able to find that right this
And then would the 14th be an option in this room?
The 14th is not an option. We don't have the staff for that anymore.
Because
and
that's
this is all set till we want to review start time. So
yeah. See, Christy, you're available.
I'm available anytime the 14th through the 17th, 21st through the 24th. between Janice and I, we can cover it all except for the 23rd after 2:30. But if it's presentations,
So
not really.
if we can do BOCC, if we could do like the 14th, 15th, and 16th, and we can do, okay, so the 15th and 16th, and then we can always recess the 16th to another day if we need to cover some others, but then we're able to get those done next week instead of pushing presentations to the following week, which if we push all of the presentations to the following week, we're not going to be able to start having any robust conversations until the May. I mean, we're into May that next week. Whereas if we can get those conversations handled early next week, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Are the books gonna be ready by then?
Yeah, they'll be ready.
So Cassie, can you check on that and see if Tuesday the 15th, 9:30, beginning at 9:30, scheduled through the day like what we did last year, and then Wednesday the 16th starting at 10 o'clock, which should give BOCC time. But if we need to wait a few minutes for BOCC to end on that Wednesday, we can always start right at the end of BOCC PBA. Then we may be able to consolidate it. No, we can, if you can check, then we can send an email out.
So Cody, your thought is we will do the 15th and the 16th BOCC.
And start.
And in the event those rooms weren't available, we could post a note on the door and move someplace else. Is that right?
I don't know. I can't give you an answer right now without going back at the schedule.
Pull up the.
And Chantel,
Well, I
you were
have
not
those
available on the 15th.
No, ma'am. I did discuss with many
But
being present, and so I just want to make sure
That that's okay.
that was, and I know a lot of you guys are here, so I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe, I was just wanting to figure out from everybody, if everybody can make the 15th and 16th work like that, then we don't have to decide that right now. We don't have to take action on it. Cassie can go back and check, and if BOCC meeting room is available on the 15th and 16th, then Cassie can go ahead and just send out an email to everybody that she's scheduling it for them. If that doesn't work, then I can call a special BET for 3-4 days that last week of April. I don't want to, we got pushed last year to the last minute, and I just don't want that to happen.
When are the BOE meetings?
They start at 9:30 every day, except for most Thursdays.
And
They are meeting on the second.
They go until how long?
It just depends. Today they went till almost 11 o'clock.
Are you looking at the meeting schedule?
Yeah, there's
I don't see anything
nothing
on
in
the 15th.
BOCC on the 15th. The only thing you have on the 16th, BOCC obviously is BOCC meeting, and then there's 9-10 PBA, so the normal.
Okay.
They're just working around BOCC.
Yeah. So we're not operating on item 14 because that's got some specific times there. We're operating on item 4, the schedule for departmental meetings to ask questions about each department's 25-26 estimate needs. Is there a motion to schedule those special meetings for the days of April the 15th, beginning at 9:30 in the morning, and April 16th, beginning at 10 o'clock?
But just as a point. Because what I'm hearing Cassie say is not necessarily just the BOCC, there's also a staffing problem. So if they've got to man BOE and BOCC at the same time, that may not fix the issue. I mean, we're making a decision without letting her do a consultation when she said she needs to go back and look. If they don't have the staff to do it, I mean, at least that's what I'm hearing. I mean,
That is correct, because Michelle is responsible for the POE meetings, but she's also going to be in here at the same time. She can't do both.
right. So
she's
She's going to be in here so that I can focus on what your decisions are.
we're not going to be making decisions.
Well, I mean, as far as like what your notes are, and as far as things go like that. It's
We're at Michelle and Cassie for this week's process. But, I mean, Michelle doesn't run BOCC anyway.
Who does BOCC?
Sharon.
And Cassie. Depending on who's.
So I guess I don't understand the conflict.
I need to ensure that we have staffing.
They're changing the process. They're going to have 2 people in here instead of 1. And one of those 2 people that they're going to be in our meetings does BOE. But that just, I mean, that puts us in a bind. And
I'm not saying that it can't work. I'm not saying that I just need to verify what our staffing is going to be for those days.
okay, so let's do this. Let's let Cassie go back. She knows that that's our preference, that we would like the 15th at 9:30 to run, the day until, say, 2:30-ish, somewhere around there. And then on the 15th, the same thing, except starting at 10 o'clock.
The 15th was 9:30, the 16th.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Why don't you do 10:30?
10:30?
Right, yes.
Okay, yeah, 10:30 to the BOCC. We give plenty of time.
and also, only just because Jason's on here, I know he'd be screaming. I mean, the chances of us going up is 99.9995%. So, I mean, do we really need to spend? And there's a lot of salaries sitting here for 3 days listening to presentations when none of them are going to matter anyway. Choose a flat budget. I mean, I'm not saying that we don't do that. I'm just saying there's a lot of money that sits around the table.
We have to
We're just gonna choose a
hear the
flat budget.
estimated needs at some point.
Well, no, I get that, obviously. I just mean that, all I'm just putting out there for discussion is that do we need to hear it all in its entirety now? Is all I'm saying. So if we are concerned about timing, and we do anticipate that we're gonna need all day on a couple of days, 8 hours for something that again is just gonna go right into a flat budget bucket anyway. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I get all sides of it, but again, I mean, I somewhat agree with Jason when he brings up. I mean, we do this. We'll end up hearing these things twice this year, and they don't change. And again, I don't know when the last time we haven't done a flat budget, essentially. So that's all I was saying. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. I'll make any time, any day work. I'll get up there and then that, which I don't care. But my point is that I mean.
Well, especially considering some of the departments have already presented policy and governance.
They've always done that.
Yeah, but
Because that's the way the commissioners can give them direction.
Well, they did give them direction. So it's like those have already been taken care of.
they haven't been taken care of on
Not
this
with
side.
us.
So either they have to present to us, or the 3 of you have to present on their behalf. But just because they presented to BOCC and BOCC is cool with the budget doesn't mean that the rest of the group is going to be cool with it. So we're still going to have to be briefed on that. But I say we, this group, to be able to make a recommendation.
Again, I'm just bringing that up as a point of conversation, just because again, I mean, no doubt we have to hear the estimates of need, but I mean, let's be honest, if you hear an estimate of needs, it would change your mind on how you vote for a flat budget or not. No, I mean, and so that's all. I'm just rooting for Jason, just to while he's not here. So.
Appreciate it.
Again, I'm not saying we don't hear him. I just mean,
If
if we stick to a relatively rigid schedule, I guess if we had a non-voting chair that could keep us on a very specific schedule, I think we would know in advance what our timeline is.
Aren't we, Brandon, to your point, aren't we just basically asking Do you have any increases that you gotta have at the start of the year? And did you have any one-time funds that you're not asking?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I
So
think,
can't we do that in 15 minutes per department if we send out a detailed email saying,
and that's what I mean. I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I don't need somebody to read their estimates. I'm fully capable of doing that. If I have any questions, I mean, obviously I like a professor reading a PowerPoint slide, it's irritating as can be. I mean, and again, if we run into any things where we need to maybe make some, conversations, but to Joe's point, I mean, I've got 2 questions per department, and I can tell those by looking at the estimates, so I don't know.
So what we can do then is, if you guys want to take that approach, and I like that approach, if we're meeting the 15th and 16th, we start at 9:30, and then we start at 10:30, schedule every 15 minutes for each department, get them all in here, and we'll just run through them, hit the highlights, tell them, big things they want us to know, and we can move through. And I will do my darndest to make sure that we're sticking to that schedule.
Yeah, and then I think, and I think we could easily knock out all of those, because I remember one year we knocked those out pretty quick, so I think we adhered to that.
Yeah.
I think we knocked out every department pretty quickly.
That was 2 years ago, we got through.
Yeah, and then we used that last day to kind of hammer out the necessities. So maybe we could meet in the middle somewhere rather than listening to the lecture on each one of them until it's really necessary in September, when we know if we have the money to fund it or not.
All right, so Cassie, you'll check on the dates and then let us all know. Okay. And we will.
If those are available to work, I will go ahead and get them started with the request.
Okay.
Otherwise, I will reach out to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
One general question. When we're asking people to present, do we still want CJA to come present, Chris Sherman, and then have Chris Steele the team to our group? To me, those have been helpful when they do that.
Thanks.
I think anybody that needs money should be here.
Big dollars.
Yeah.
Those are.
Especially should we do that?
I mean, maybe on some of those ones where we know there's gonna be more discussion, maybe we can give them more than 15 minutes.
put them on the second day or at the end of the first day? Because general government would need more, CJA would need more. Those are the 2 off the top of my head right now. I can think of.
Yeah. Maybe juvenile. Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, you know how those contract negotiations go or don't go, and I'm not anticipating any real changes.
Yeah. Okay. Chantel, did you have something?
I just wanted to make sure I understand any directive. If an email needs to be sent out, I'd be happy to send that in the routine way I've been doing it, but if that's not necessary.
All right. Sounds like we don't need any action on 4 or 14 at this time. Does anybody have anything else they want to go over that's on the agenda that's already been discussed? If not, citizen participation. Any citizens wish to participate? Seeing none, board comments, District 2?
No, thank you.
Clerk? District 1?
Came back.
It's the first time I've ever said that.
You two get to work together.
You're gonna want Cody back.
Treasurer?
No, thank you.
Court clerk?
Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
Assessor?
I'd just like to say thanks for late putting our report together for us. That's foundation of where you started, so appreciate your work.
Yeah. Sure. Well, definitely thank you. Lots of hard work there. All right, guys. Joe, welcome. All right. Is there any new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes, shall have it.